Hi, and welcome to New Moon Knitting. I'm Hillary, and this is episode 7 of my podcast. So hi, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today, I have 4 finished objects, including what I'm wearing. I also have 2 whips that I'll talk about, and at the end, I will share a little bit about what I've been up to and a couple of small acquisitions I got. So let's go ahead and get started. Real quick little admin thing before I get into the knitting content. Because it's the end of the year and this is kind of my first year doing podcasting, I thought it might be fun to do like a little bit of a special episode for end of December, like a knit and chat. And if people are curious, I thought I could do like a Q&A. So if you have questions, if you're curious about things, please go ahead and leave them in the comments of this video. I'll probably add something to my Instagram as well, so folks can ask over there too. And then if there's interest, if people have questions they want answered, I will probably end of December sit down and do a real casual video where I answer some of your questions and share with you on those things. So yeah, if you're interested, leave your comment below. And I look forward to seeing what kind of questions y'all might have for me. So let's start with what I'm wearing. So this is my finished Lunefuld by Lunefuld. This is a top-down raglan sweater with a funnel neck shaping and an all-over 1x3 rib. It comes in 6 sizes and is knit on a US 8, which is a 5mm, and a US 9, which is a 5.5mm needle. The suggested yarn is a DK and a silk mohair held together, so it is BC Garn Samilla Melange and Kremke Soul Wool Kid Silky. I ended up using just a single strand of Cascade 220 in the color black. So overall, I'm happy with the final result. I really like the ribbing because it is like pearl dominant. You know, a lot of time ribbing is, you are focused on knits or it's like an even balance, but having it mostly a pearl or the backside of your stockinette with just some thin single strands of knit stitches to break it up, I think that is something that looks really nice. I love, this has a 7-stitch raglan repeat, and I love me a big thick raglan. You know, I guess if you're gonna do a raglan sweater, it's like go big or go home. But yeah, I think with the color, with the funnel neck, I made my funnel neck a little bit shorter than what the pattern called for, but this is kind of like my sweet spot for a funnel neck because it gives me kind of the shape I like, but it's not, there's not too much wool on my neck. So overall I'm not that sensitive to yarn, but the skin on my neck can be very sensitive. And so I don't always love wearing like a big turtleneck, even though I love the way they look, because that itchy feeling kind of like takes over my thought process for the whole day. So something like this, 1 layer, it's a funnel neck. So like it does have like a little more, it's a little less constricting than like a folded over turtleneck. All of that playing together, I think it makes it look really nice without me having to sacrifice comfort, you know? And yeah, with the color, with the shape, with all of that together, I think it looks really classic. I think it looks pretty sophisticated. I have a lot of like fun sweaters I've knit, and I've been trying to knit like a couple more pieces that feel like, I guess, like office appropriate, because I work in an office. This is definitely one that I think I could wear in my current place of business and not look out of place. So yeah, I think that's great. I did do one kind of modification, which is on my sleeve shaping. So in the original pattern, you knit basically the whole sleeve straight, and then you do some rapid decreases. So you end up with not really a balloon shaping, but more of like that kind of cinched look to it. And I just wanted something that was much more open. So I just continued my cuff in the same number of stitches I had done the rest of the sleeve. So mine are kind of wide at the bottom, but that's what I was looking for. I've kind of been into that sort of look, similar to like me feeling itchy on my neck. I think too, like the skin on my wrists can be kind of sensitive. And so I've been enjoying knitting sweaters that have a little bit more room, that don't feel restricting at the cuffs. It makes it more appealing for me to wear. And I find that I'm more likely to just like throw it on and not think about it all day, where sometimes if it's tight on the wrists, it kind of gets in my head. The only thing I would say about this is the pattern as written does not have any short row shaping. So I have found that like it bunches up. I get a little bit of bunching here in the front, and now that I've worn it a few times, I wanted to see like how bad that was before I did sweater surgery on it. But I think it's enough that it's going to take away from the wearing of it in the future. And so maybe over like winter break or something, I'll sit down and I'll figure out how to add just a couple of short rows in the back so that it sits a little bit nicer on the front. But overall, I'm really happy with this piece. Like I said, I think it is in this color, in this shape, with this ribbing, it just creates something that looks very classic and very timeless. So should hopefully get a lot of wear out of this for years to come. So that is the Lunefuld by Lone Kjeldsen. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about my other finished objects this week. So the first item I have is a pair of mittens. These are the Narwhal and Fossil by Yucca or Yucca. They are a color block free mitten pattern. The pattern calls for Brooklyn tweed shelter, and I actually used, this never happens, I used the recommended yarn. So I used Brooklyn tweed shelter in the color Snowbound. Brooklyn tweed shelter is a 100% American Targhee Columbia wool worsted weight yarn. And I also used some Harrisville Designs Highland wool, which is a 100% virgin wool, also worsted weight. And that one was in the color black. So these are knit on a US 5, and they only come in one size, but they are a free pattern. And I'll put them on so you can see, like, so they fit my hands pretty well. Let me get this one on too. So yeah, so they fit my hands well, but candidly, I have like kind of small hands. So I think they would fit like a teenager or like an adult who just has hands on the smaller size. But if you're thinking about knitting these for someone with larger hands, they just might be a little small and you might need to make adjustments in terms of maybe the needle size, or if you can math your way to something bigger or use a thicker yarn, you could do that. But I do think they're really cute. I love the way that the thumbs are like color blocked with the cuffs. This is my first time using Brooklyn tweed at all, but also the shelter. And I think these are very cozy mittens. I actually cast these on because I was lucky enough a couple weeks ago to be able to go to Europe with my family. So over the Thanksgiving holiday in the United States, we went to London and we also went to northern France. And so I cast these on kind of because I wanted something to work on the trip, but also I figured if I finished them while I was there, it was going to be cold and I was going to be outside a lot. And so having like a quick pair of mitts to throw on when it was chilly was going to be good. And I finished them a couple days into the trip because I had, like a 8-hour plane ride and quite a couple train rides. So I had a lot of downtime to work on these, and I was very happy to have them when I was walking around London, get my hands nice and warm. So overall, pretty happy with these. Again, these are the Narwhal and Fossil pattern by Yucca. Also, while I was traveling, I figured if I was already going to have this yarn, I knew I wasn't going to use the total amount of yardage I had for the Highland and the Brooklyn tweed shelter. And so I wanted to have a second pattern with me so that I could cast something else on if I ended up finishing my mittens, which I did pretty early on in the trip. And so I decided I wanted to try the December Beanie pattern by Pernille Larsen. This is a classic double layer stockinette hat. The pattern suggests holding 3 yarns together, knitting for olive merino with 2 strands of knitting for olive soft silk mohair. So that's 2 fingering and 2 lace weight yarns held together for about a worsted weight gauge. Again, I already had, both my yarns were worsted weight, so I just used a single strand of those. And I pretty much follow the pattern. Here, let me show you how my hat came out. So this is what the hat looks like when you, as knit, I suppose, right? So I started here and you do increases and then you knit a very long tube and then you do your crown decreases again. And so I just basically knit till I ran out of this Highland yarn, and then I knit with the Brooklyn tweed until I had a hat of the same length. This is supposed to be knit on a US 8, but I realized when I was in France that I forgot to bring extra needles with me. And so I only had the needles that I had for the Narwhal and Fossil mitts. And so I knit this on a US 5, which is a 3.75 millimeter needle. Because of that, I knit the largest size when really normally I would knit the medium. And then I also just did a little bit of math on the increases so that I had 8 extra stitches all the way around while I was knitting it. So yeah, it fits. Let me show you how it fits. So it's a little snug, but it does fit my head. And if I want to kind of fold it up, fits kind of like a watchman's cap, I think it's called, but you get the two-toned look if you do it that way. You can also, just wear it as a single layer, but because of like the weight of the 2 layers of worsted weight yarn, you don't get any, it's not really slouchy. It kind of just like sticks up. So if you like that look, you could wear it like that. But I like it folded over, and wow, this is going to be a great episode for my hair. But yeah, and then you can flip it around and wear it with black on the top and gray for the folded over bit. So yeah, I think it's really cute. I think it will be really great when it's real cold because it's those 2 layers. And also, I've never knit it, but I think it's a decent alternative to the Muscle Burrow hat, which I don't know I know it is available in quite a few yarn weights, but I don't know if it goes all the way up to worsted weight yarn. If it does, please correct me. But yeah, this is a decent alternative. I only made one kind of modification to the pattern, which is when you do the crown decreases up here, the way it's written, you're only doing them on one side. And so that's going to create a little bit of a spiral, and which I'll actually have an example of on the next finished object. And that's because they expect that when you're done, that's always going to be the inside of the hat. And so it doesn't really matter if they're spiraling a little bit. That's also like a totally fine way to structure of the visible part of your hat. I've definitely knit hats that have that little bit of spiraling and it looks fine. But I wanted something that kind of mirrored the way that the increases are done at the beginning, which is to create like 4 points rather than any kind of spiraling. And so all I did was where I wanted to do the decreases, I would do a slip knit and then a knit 2 together, and then not do any decreases on the next row. And that way I had 8 decreases every other row, and I got the crown shaping that I wanted. So yeah, nice, easy pattern. It's a good one if you're looking for a nice warm worsted weight hat for the winter. So yeah, that is the December Beanie by Pernille Larsen. And my last finished object today is a vintage World War I pattern. So couple of episodes ago, I talked about how I have a younger brother and he is very interested in history and particularly the history of World War I. And so I thought a nice Christmas present for him might be to make him a piece that would have been made for service members who were fighting in World War I. So I found a copy of Fleischer's Knitting and Crochet Manual from 1918. And in this manual, they have a whole section of service wear patterns. So they had hats and gloves and sweaters and things like that. But I was really drawn to this one called Helmet. I thought it was just a really interesting piece and something that doesn't look like what you would see today, where like a lot of the patterns looked like they could have been modern. And so I decided I wanted to try to make him this piece. So I did some research into what the yarn colors would have looked like. And so Fleischer's had two colors that were available for service wear knits for the US military. And those were a khaki green and like a dark gray. And I happened to have a green in my stash that was fairly close to the pictures I saw online of the khaki green from Fleischer's. And that's this Amano Skinny Yana, which is a 100% Highland wool single ply yarn. The pattern mentions a worsted weight yarn, and given the number of stitches that are cast on and kind of being familiar with how many stitches you would cast on for a hat, I assume that that was actually like close to a worsted weight and not just meaning worsted spun. But it was recommended to be knit on a US 3 needle. I ended up going up one needle size to a US 4, which is a 3.5 millimeter needle, just to give me a little more space and give my brother a little more space. All right, so this is what my piece ended up looking like. So there we go. It's hard to get the whole thing in frame, but you start with these two garter panels on the back and the front, and then you join them, and then you do, I think it's just 2x2 ribbing all the way to the split for the face hole. Then you join those back up, and then you do decreases at 3 points around the crown. And this is what I was talking about, where if you only do decreases kind of on one side, so if you're just doing slip knits or knit two togethers or whatever, you end up spiraling them because all of your stitches are moving over one position as you decrease. But I did them as written because that's what the pattern said. Interesting, I guess, kind of interesting. You know, the whole main part of the face is ribbed, but the crown is flat, which is not something that like I see in a lot of modern ribbing patterns. And my guess is like the picture that they show, the gentleman is wearing it under a hat. I imagine it's meant to be worn under a helmet. And so you probably don't want that extra fabric on your head if you are also wearing some sort of additional headwear on top of this. As I mentioned, my family was in France a couple of weeks ago, and part of the reason for that was to visit a couple of World War I locations. So before I got there, my family went to Verdun, and then while I was with them, we visited a couple of historical locations near Arras and Lille. It was very powerful to go to these locations. I'll be honest, I don't know a ton about World War I. I feel like World War II is just, it's a time that I'm more familiar with the history of that war. But to go to these locations and, you know, to see how the landscape is still so scarred by the warfare that took place there over 100 years ago, and to see the cemeteries and to go to the museums and hear the stories of, you know, all of these like very young men was, it was a very powerful experience. And I think it gave this project a little bit more meaning after seeing that and reading these things, because you could think about, you know, what it would have been like to be there, you know, so far away from home and so cold and in these horrible trenches for months and months and months. And to get something made by hand by, you know, somebody back home that is not only like physically going to keep you warm, but is kind of an emotional reminder of these like softer things that humanity is capable of. Yeah, I don't know. I'm getting kind of existential about this pattern, but it was, yeah, it was really special. And I did give this, I finished this before I left, and I did give this to my brother while I was there so he could see it, so he could use it while he was on the battlefield. But I asked for it back because I finished it on the plane ride over there. And so I wanted to better weave in my ends, and I wanted to give it a good block. And I also wanted to show it to you guys because people were really interested in this. So I took it back, but I'm going to send it off to him this week so that he can use it. He lives up in New England, so I'm sure his face will appreciate it. I'll try it on, but I'm going to film the rest of the podcast first. I'll put it on at the end because there's no way my hair is coming back from putting this on and taking this off. Okay, so no way I'm putting this on and not messing up the microphone. So just like apologies for the noise in advance if it happens. Okay. Gotta get my bangs out of the way. All right, so so this is what the final product looks like. I will say, like, these are a little shorter than they looked like in the picture. Like, in the picture, the guy's got it, like, wrapped like a scarf, and I don't think that's going to work for this. But it is super cozy. Yeah, when my brother tried it on, like, it's snug on my head, you know, and so my brother has a bigger head than me, and so when he tried it on, it definitely fits more like this. Like, it goes over his mouth a bit more, but he said he's okay with that because he thinks it'll be better for when it's cold outside. And so, yeah, so it's still like, there's plenty of room for his eyes. It doesn't close up on his eyes. So, yeah, this was the helmet from the Fleischer's Knitting and Crochet Manual of 1918. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to whips. So my first whip is the Eurus Sweater by Eggyo Knits. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Thank you so much to the person who gave me some guidance on the Korean meaning and pronunciation of that word. So Eggyo Knits. This is an all-over cabled sweater, and it is knit side to side. So I was really fascinated by that construction. I've never knit a sweater like that. And that's what drew me to this sweater. The suggested yarn is an Aran weight yarn. I'll put the name here because I'm gonna get the pronunciation wrong, but that's what it's called. It's an Aran weight wool yarn. I am using two yarns held together. So I'm using this Cascade Heathers 220. And this color is called Lepidolite Heather, I believe. So it's this purpley color. I'm holding it double with this Yarn Jam Surrey Halo. So this color is called Seashell. And it is a 65% baby Surrey alpaca, 35% silk. And so yeah, I'm holding these two together. Cascade 220 is 100% wool. And so yeah, this is what they look like separate but held together. And this is where my sweater is right now. So let me flip it over. So this little stitch marker here, little kitty cat, is where I was last time I showed this. And so I've made quite a bit of progress on the sleeve. I think I'm about 7 or 8 centimeters away from being done with my first sleeve. I really like the way that these cables look. I love honeycomb. It's probably my favorite cable pattern. I also like the way the yarns are playing together. So I am getting a little bit of marling on this, and because it's got the suri, it's kind of fuzzy. So if you look at it, obviously, like, I'm getting stitch definition, but I'm not getting like the most stitch definition you might get in a cabled sweater. But honestly, I'm happy with that because I don't really wear all over cables. And so I wanted something that felt a little softer. And so I think these colors are really giving me what I was looking for. So the only thing about this sweater is it only comes in 3 sizes. The largest is a 55-inch chest. But the expectation is it has quite a bit of positive ease, so it's not like super size inclusive. And you know, this difference between the small and the large, I think, is only 20 centimeters. So that's not a big size range, and I recognize that. I was really interested in this side-by-side technique, and I was struggling. I tried searching in Ravelry and was just, I don't think, using the right search terms. I wasn't finding stuff, so I just went ahead and I wanted to work on this, and I'll talk about it, I'll share about it, but people were really helpful. They gave me some other side-by-side sweaters, so if you're interested in a sweater that has some more sizes, but it has this technique to it, one of them is the Mist Sweater by Gargon Skilt, which comes in 6 sizes. There's also the Hannah Sweater by Pernille Larsen that comes in 8 sizes. And then there's the Sourcebook Sideways Pullover by Nora Goggin, and that comes in 7 sizes. So I will have all of those linked below if you're interested in a pattern that is knit side by side and you want something that has a little bit more sizing to it. Other things, the cable pattern, super easy to memorize on this one because all of your cables happen on the same row. So they're all at the same rate. You get to do like mostly just knits and purls. You don't have to worry about cabling too much. And yeah, so I'm very excited. I'm almost done with the sleeve and ready to get started on the body. All right, so yeah, one last time, that is the Eurus Sweater by Eggio Knit. And my last whip this week are the Cozy Toes Socks by Christian Burkhardt. So these are a free worsted weight sock pattern. They come in sizes child small through adult large and are written for worsted, bulky, and I think Aran weight yarn. So lots of flexibility in this pattern. The pattern designer also mentions that they wanted to write this particularly for charity knits, for children and other people who may need socks and live in very cold climates. So I thought that was really sweet. The pattern recommends a couple of different yarns, Cascade 220, the Mission Falls 1824 wool, and Cascade Yarns 128 superwash. So various worsted and bulky weight yarns. I am using Cascade Heritage. This is leftover Cascade Heritage in the color white from my Wild Wool Trail Socks. This, I believe, is a 75-25 superwash wool and nylon blend. And I am holding it double with this, which is Spinaway Farm hand-dyed sock yarn. It is a 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon, and I lost the band for this. I don't know where it is. This is the same base, but it also doesn't have a color name on it, so I don't know what the color is, but it's this really nice, it's like a bunch of different blues, light blue, dark blue. This is the whole blue palette. I am making the size large, which fits up to an adult male size US 12 foot. And I am knitting these for my husband for Christmas. Okay, so this is my sock so far. So for the cuff, it's a cuff down sock. So for the cuff, I held 2 strands of the Spinaway Farm together. And then for the leg and through the heel where I've gotten to, I'm holding 1 strand of the Spinaway Farms and 1 strand of the Cascade Heritage to create this marled effect in here. This is a really nice, just like basic sock pattern. It uses a heel flap and gusset technique with an eye of partridge. I believe it's an eye of partridge heel, which is when you do slip knits, but you alternate what stitches those are on every other row. So I think if it's just like a slip stitch heel, you get these ridges, kind of like ribbing, and then Eye of Partridge that pattern is separated out. So you don't get the lines. Yeah, so I'm making these for my husband for Christmas. He actually picked out this yarn and the other skein that I showed you when we went to Maryland Sheep and Wool together this year. He came with me and I said, hey, you know, if you go, I know you're not like a big fiber enthusiast. So if you go, like, pick out a single skein of yarn and I will make you a pair of socks for your birthday, which was in June. And so we got there and like he found a skein he liked in the first booth he went to and he was like, I got it. That's it. Let's buy it. So I bought it for him. And then, you know, 3 booths later, there was another yarn he really liked. And by the end of the day, it turned out, he said to me, you know, if I buy some yarn, if I buy the yarn, like if my husband buys the yarn, will I still knit him some socks? And I said, yeah, absolutely. Just like, no, I'll need a little bit more time if that's the case. And he was like, yeah, of course. So by the end of the day, along with the yarn I bought for him for his birthday, he bought 3 additional skeins of yarn. And I have slowly been making him socks with those. So I knit him a pair for his birthday in June. I knit him a pair at the beginning of September for our anniversary. And now I'm knitting him a pair for Christmas. I decided to make this worsted weight pair because he does have a lot of socks now that are like just classic fingering weight socks. But it's been very cold here and he has a pair of like very thick socks I knit for him. I think the pattern was called Men's Rag Hiking Socks, but they're like a worsted and a fingering held together. So they're like a very bulky weight sock. And they're great for around the house, but like you can't wear them under anything. And so I thought this was like a happy medium because it's twice as thick as most of the socks I make for him. So they'll be super warm, but like realistically, if he's got to slip on a pair of, you know, sneakers to run out to the mailbox or put on a pair of boots to like shovel some snow, or if he's wearing like slippers around the house, he can fit these underneath those items. And so, yeah, so I thought these would be a perfect kind of Christmas thing. Also, I know my husband watches this, and I know people when they make gifts are always like, look away, but like, I already showed these to him. I was gonna keep them a secret, but then he like came in my office and I couldn't resist. I was like, do you like these? You like these socks? Okay, good, because they're for you. So, I will say this pattern is a little sparse, which is fine. It has a lot of variety to it, but like if it's your first time knitting socks, I would suggest maybe using like the Rye pattern from Tin Can Knits, because that's another worsted weight sock, but they go into a lot more detail about all the steps that you do, and so it's a lot easier to learn. I ended up in the heel turn I wasn't familiar with, and I kind of went into autopilot and I just did the heel turn the way I know how to do the heel turn, which I believe is the heel turn that is in the Rye sock pattern. So that's really the only difference I noticed. But other than that, it's a good pattern. It's nice. It's like a good kind of like formula if you're familiar with socks. There's enough there to like get you through and get you the right dimensions for a worsted weight sock if you mostly knit like fingering weight. So yeah, I love how this is coming along. It's really nice to knit a worsted weight sock because they go so fast. Like this is like 2 days of work. So yeah, these are the Cozy Toes by Christian Burkhard. All right, so just I'm going to talk real quick about my trip to Europe and my acquisitions. So yeah, I already mentioned we went to northern France and kind of what that experience was like. And then we spent 3 days in London, which was amazing. I have been to London before. I'm very lucky. I've been twice before, but this was my first time going around the holiday season. And so they had all these like Christmas lights out on all of the streets and they had these big window displays set up. And so the city was just kind of like magical in a way that like I hadn't seen it before. And so that was really cool. So the first store I went to was Loop. Loop is really cute. It's up in, I think, the Islington neighborhood, which is just like in general, like a really cute area. When I went, there was like an antique market going on outside, which was nice. And they have a really great selection of yarns. So they have a lot of La Bien-Aimée, and some other like big brands. But they also have a few different options for British wools, and that's really what I was looking for because I was traveling. So I ended up getting one skein of yarn. This is the Uncommon Thread Lush Worsted. It is 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere, and 10% nylon. It is a worsted weight yarn, and it's 210 meters to 100 grams. And the color here is B105. So it is a hand-dyed yarn from Britain. It's this really nice kind of like chocolatey color, this dark brown with some real red undertones to it. It's really pretty. And I got this yarn specifically because I went to a different Loop yarn store in Philadelphia. I went to Loop Philadelphia this fall, and I got their Flora, which is their 100% superwash merino worsted weight yarn in the color Ice Cream. And so I thought I would make like a Loop the Loop project. So something that requires like 400 yards-ish of worsted weight yarns, maybe like a cowl or something, or a scarf or something like that. But I thought these would look really cute together in some kind of a color work. And yeah, so that's why I got this, mostly for the joke. So yeah. Good, cute store, would recommend it. I'm excited to use this yarn. So the next store I went to was called Stash London. It was located, I feel like people from London are going to get mad at my geography, but like in my brain, it was like kind of outside of like Clerkenwell. We stayed north of King's Cross, St. Pancras. And so it was like probably a 20-minute walk from that train station. Again, apologies to people from London who are like probably screaming at the TV right now, but it was a nice store. I think they might be like an official Rowan distributor because they had a lot of Rowan yarn, and they had like all of the beautiful Rowan magazines. They had more commercial yarns, which is like fine. I think it's good to have stores where you can buy more commercial yarn. Because it's nice to see it in person. It's nice to support small businesses when you want to buy those things rather than like purchasing them online. But because I was traveling, I was looking for yarn that I couldn't get back home, and a lot of the yarn in the store I could get back home. And so I did find some yarn though. This is Erica Knight, born in Britain, local wool, 100% wool. The band says, wherever possible, we try to support British heritage of textile mills and promote native sheep breeds. So it's a blend of blue-faced Leicester and hard-wearing Masham, produced from the fleece to yarn in less than 50 miles. So perfect for what I was looking for. It is 100 grams and 492 yards. And it is a 2-ply, so it's like a light 2-ply fingering, and this color is called Ickwell, color 812. So this is just like a real nice kind of muted, maybe like sage color. This like nice green. Yeah, I don't 100% have a plan for this one yet, but I have a mohair that I think would match really well with this, so I might hold them together to get something that's a little more of like a DK sport weight and do something with them. But yeah, I thought this was a really pretty wool. And then the last store I went to was called Beautiful Knitters. This one, I couldn't tell you what neighborhood it was in. I'm trying to remember where I got off on the tube, if that will, I think it was on the Victoria line that I got off. But again, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, people of London. I'll try better next time. But it was an adorable store, and they definitely had an amazing selection of yarns I had not seen before. So first of all, they had some knitting for Olive, which I don't see a lot in the United States. I do think Loop had some in Philadelphia, but my local yarn store that I go to doesn't have them. And so it was nice to see those colors in person if I ever want to order them. And then they also just had like some really, really nice yarns. I spent the most time in this store because I didn't want to buy too much yarn. First of all, I couldn't. My bags were like full, so stuffed, and I was like, I can only fit one skein of yarn. I can't fit any more than that. But I really struggled to decide on one skein in this store because they just had so many pretty yarns, and I hope someday I can go back with an empty suitcase and buy some more lovely things from them. So yeah, I did buy 2 things total at the store. So first of all, they gave me this super cute tote bag when I was checking out. Sorry it's wrinkled because I had to wrap it up in my luggage, but very cute. And I was so appreciative for this nice little bag. I can't wait to use it for projects this winter. I also bought a solid wool shampoo. So Along Avec Anna is the name of the brand, and this shampoo has lanolin and jasmine in it. And I love the smell of jasmine, and I think it'll be really nice. I was looking for some solid wool shampoo, and so I picked this up while I was there. Really excited to start using that. So then I got 1 skein of, this is called Telling Yarns Steadfast, which is a DK weight yarn. It's 50% Blue Face Leicester, 30% Romney, 15% Masham, and 5% Zwartblols. Sorry. But it is 100% British from farm to needle. It's 100 grams and 232 meters or 253 yards. And this color is called Dream Fire. So it's kind of actually similar, I would say. I don't know. It was rainy and cloudy and cold the whole time I was there. So I think I was just like in a mood with my color palette. The city was this color basically. And so I wanted to capture that feeling in what I took home. But I really, really love the different colors in here. I don't know why I can't think of like the better yarny term for it, but it's not like a solid, it's not like a heather. It's just got like some like little bits of brown and lighter areas, and I just thought it was so pretty. And I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do with this, but I'm thinking, like, I know my husband really likes this color and I really like this color, so I might make some kind of like unisex winter accessory, like a hat or something that we can have on hand just for when it's really cold and we have to walk the dog, and either of us can kind of throw it on. So yeah, something that would fit both of us. I might do that with this because I know he also really likes this color. But yeah, it's soft. It's going to be fun to work with. So yeah, I feel so lucky to have gotten to go on that trip and to have seen all of these amazing places, and to have purchased some really nice yarn as a souvenir for my travels. So yeah, I'm excited to work with them in the future. And yeah, if you're ever in London, I would really recommend visiting those stores because I had a great time. All right, so that is it for this week. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more of what I'm doing, please go ahead and subscribe. Again, if you have questions for me you'd like answered in an end of year Q&A, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you next time.